wildfires have been demolishing landscapes around the world. And with climate change, the reality is they are only becoming more common, more frequent, and more severe, especially in the western U.S. Today I'll be talking about wildfire resilience through the lens of the past, present, and future. In the past, the Oakland firestorm of 1991. In recent years, the 2019-2020 Australian bushfires. And in the future, we'll be looking at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 9, resilient infrastructure, as well as Sustainable Development Goal 13, climate action. Today I'll talk about wildfires, the past, present, and future. There have been many different types of wildfires, small and big. Examples include the Chicago Fire of 1871, the 1918 Cloquet Fire, the 2021 Dixie Fire, the 1871 Peshtigo Fire, the Oakland Hills Fire of 1991, etc. And we could only expect more of these types of wildfires in the future, worsened by climate change. According to a study done by Dr. Rong Fu, a UCLA professor, climate change has been the main cause of land in the western U.S. that has been destroyed by wildfires over the past 2 decades. And in the late 1900s, we come upon our wildfire of the past, the Oakland firestorm of 1991, one of the worst wildfires in U.S. history.
It all began on October 19th, 1991, a hot October weekend in the Bay. A small grass and brush fire that had broken out in the Berkeley Hills above Caldecott Tunnel was thought to be extinguished by firefighters, until winds kicked up the embers the next day. The fire became a firestorm, meaning it generated its own heat-driven winds and weather that continued the fire where it spread to grasses, trees, and houses. It lasted 2 days. Unfortunately, 25 people died and over 3,400 homes were destroyed. It burned only 1,600 acres but cost over $3.4 billion in today's dollars. Despite huge and courageous efforts by hundreds of firefighters on scene, inefficient planning and infrastructure contributed to this catastrophic event. For example, a shortage of water and hydrants in the communities and destroyed above-ground water pumping facilities were some of the reasons, as well as too many houses that had been built with highly flammable materials. In the aftermath, many changes were applied, whether that was towards firefighting or in residential architecture. With firefighting, these included better communication between agencies and standardization of equipment and radios. With infrastructure, there was a greater emphasis on ember-resistant roofing materials and at least 100 feet of defensible space around homes. I also learned that fire hydrants are more accessible now, and water pipes have been moved underground so that they are more resilient to wildfires.
But even now, over 30 years later, the Oakland Hills Fire is still affecting the recovery of these communities, especially for those who thought it was a one-time event. And it wasn't a one-time event. Since 1991, California, other areas of the western U.S., Turkey, Greece, South Korea, and Australia, to name a few places, have seen thousands of fires, which seem to be ever increasing in intensity. In fact, now let's take a look at the Australian bushfire of 2019-2020.
Bushfires in Australia are uncontrolled but regular occurrences that occur in the bushlands. The bushfire season in Australia typically occurs around October to March. The 2019-2020 bushfire season in Australia, also known as the Black Summer, was especially catastrophic and led to record-breaking fires. The megafires killed 34 people, took the lives of over 1 billion animals, burned over 44 million acres, destroyed 5,900 buildings, negatively affected the farming and travel industries, and resulted in tens of billions of financial loss. The bushfires were finally contained in March 2020, 9 months after they first broke out in September of 2019. Australia's ecosystem was majorly impacted by the bushfires, and the Australian government has financially committed to protect wildlife, support restoration efforts, and rebuild affected infrastructure.
Of course, it will be some time until we are all able to understand all the effects of these bushfires, especially as the communities are still recovering. Research is showing climate change is a factor that fueled these flames, with statistics from the Australian Bureau of Meteorology suggesting extended drought, increased temperatures, and extreme surface dryness, and stronger winds intensified the bushfire season. I think it is also important to note that while studies show that climate change is related to the increase in wildfires, these wildfires also contribute back to global warming, since they release tons of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Particles and gases from burning biomass can also affect the air quality over long distances. Now it's been more than a year since Australia's Black Summer wildfires swept across the nation. The costs of wildfires all around the world are increasing, causing great harm to both communities and the environment. We know these trends will continue to worsen, especially in the face of climate change. The latest United Nations report on climate change makes it clear that something must be done. Another report published by the UN discussed the direct impacts of wildfires on 9 out of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which are goals created in 2015 to protect the planet and improve the lives of everyone, everywhere. I want to call attention to two of the Sustainable Development Goals: SDG 9, Building Resilient Infrastructure, and SDG 13, Climate Action, which seems to be the most impacted by the growing scale of wildfires around the world. Of course, all SDGs are interdependent, but looking at climate change and how infrastructure can become more resilient is a priority. Resilience is all about the recovery of a community after it is hit by a disaster. The future of wildfire resilience falls under SDG 9, with a focus on disaster risk reduction. This includes engineering with more robust and fire-resistant materials, able to withstand high temperatures, and updating building codes and standards. And some of the targets of SDG 13 also address wildfire resilience, especially its aims to strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-related hazards and natural disasters in all countries. Working to incorporate climate change measures into national policies and strategies and planning will definitely help speed up the process, not just for wildfires, but for all other natural disasters as well. We really do need to work together on all aspects of a problem to find the best solution, especially with all the doubt from climate change. In the case of wildfires, we have a lot more to learn and a lot of work to do, but I am excited for all the progress we have made and the progress we will make in the future.
For more information, please visit www.unep.org/news-and-stories/story/effect-wildfires-sustainable-development.